live. Always got to check. Our internet's, we're in the middle of nowhere. So our internet is not the most stable. So we like to make absolutely sure that we are live because it always takes a couple minutes for the lives to register. So we have to make sure that we're good. Otherwise, we will just start just as soon as I'm sure we are actually live. Yeah, it looks like we are. Okay. Looks like we are indeed live. I had it scheduled, but then I had a little error and I forgot to do something on the scheduled live stream, so I had to delete it and come back and redo it. So we are good now. We are good now. So now that we are good, let's get started. Welcome back to Andersen Acres. My name is Leanne, and if you're new here, I run a small hobby farm in central Canada where the winters are long, the wind is rude, and the animals have very strong opinions about the snow, which you will see has fallen. That's why we are live streaming from inside today. It's been nasty, is the word. So we've had blowing snow, falling snow, more blowing snow, horrific winds, and 25 below. So yeah, it's been an absolutely delightful few days, which is why we were sitting in here. The wind is far too nasty. I just have to clean my glasses. But the wind is far too nasty to film outside today. I would have to be so bundled up, you wouldn't be able to hear me. The wind is so bad, I would have to put scarves over my face and you wouldn't be able to hear me at all. So we're filming inside, and you could see it's not great outside. Now, there is a lot of glare, so it's not as whiteouty as it appears, but it is snowing, and it is blowing, and it's kind of nasty. So this is the first day of the month. This is where we sit down for a farm talk. And usually we would be outside, but we're not going to be outside in this kind of weather, so we're going to sit inside. So I'm always glad if you're here with me live. I know the vast majority of people have to tune in later. I know this is an inconvenient time to go live. I know it is. This is a bad, bad time. And I get that because it's Friday afternoon. Most people are at work. But thank you for catching me on the replay. That's why I leave these up. The vast majority of people catch it on the replay, and that's fine. If you do have a question, because at the end we do a Q&A section, if you have a question and you're watching this on the replay, you can simply drop it in the chat, in the comments, or you can shoot me a message on Facebook, and I will include your question later down the road. If you're live, obviously you can just ask it live. So I get that a lot of people can't watch on Friday afternoons. Most of you are still at work or rushing home or trying to wrangle your own families or your own animals. So that's fine. Just know that I do try to include all the questions I get, but if your exact question was answered in like the previous week, I might not pick it for a couple weeks just so I don't have the same slot of questions every single time. Okay? So drop me a message or drop a comment in any of my videos. I do see them even if I don't respond, and I will add your question to my rotation. And I have my questions for the end of the stream on my handy dandy little e-reader. Thank you, Katie, for showing me how to sideload them onto my e-reader so I wouldn't be so annoyed having to write them all down all the time. Okay, so let's get to the meat of today, okay? Because we're talking about winter. We might as well. It has arrived full force. Okay. So it is December. It's the first Friday in December. And since it's December here, we are deep in that snowy, blowy, full body, brace yourself winter season that central Canada is so famous for. It's the time of year when the animals all react a little bit differently. Some thrive, yes. Some complain. And some dramatically act like the sky's falling, and we have a chicken that's just wandering around over there, just doing chicken stuff, you know? So some of them don't care. Some of them camp out in the barn. It depends. So tonight we're going to chat about how every species on this farm handles winter a little bit different. And we get to talk about what we do to keep everyone safe and warm and content through the very coldest months of the year. Winter hits everyone a little bit differently on the farm, and honestly, that's part of what keeps things interesting around here. We're going to ignore the notifications. But yeah, sorry if I have notification sounds going off. I've got a phone there, and I've got a phone there, and I've got a phone there. So if you hear ding, 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 I forgot to turn them off. We're not going to worry about it. But some animals like to act like December is their moment to shine, and others behave like the wind personally insulted them, and they are filing an emotional support complaint with management. So let's talk about how each animal actually handles the cold, starting with the most dramatic winter performer I own, the miniature horse. Shadowfax, our white mini horse, grows a beautiful thick winter coat, but you wouldn't know it based on the way he behaves when it first starts to snow. Okay? He likes to act as though winter has singled him out for suffering. If there's a slight breeze, he turns his back to it. He'll tuck his little butt under and look at me like I'm the one that scheduled the weather. I'm not. I didn't pick this. But he thinks I did. But physical dramatics aside, and Shadowfax is always dramatic at the beginning of winter, like, I can't believe the winter arrived. And then he enjoys the heck out of it after about 2 or 3 weeks. Okay? He will be rolling in the snow, galloping through it. He'll be having a great old time. So, dramatics aside, physical dramatics aside, minis are incredibly hardy. Their coat insulates them really, really, really well, as long as they have shelter from the wind and a good layer of hay in their belly or feed in their belly, depending on what you feed your horse. Some people feed, some people feed hay. Most people feed a combination of both. It doesn't matter as long as they're getting the calories and the nutrition they require. It doesn't matter. But as long as they have enough feed and they have shelter from the wind, they handle the cold just fine. Okay, that winter coat is designed to protect them. If you have a miniature horse that is in standard health, like good health, I recommend not blanketing them unless they're really young or really old. And the reason I recommend not blanketing them is because the blanket actually kind of compresses their coat and makes them feel colder. That thick coat that's like this thick on a miniature horse, that's important. The thickness of that coat specifically protects them and it traps the heat inside their body. If you flatten that coat with the use of a blanket, they will feel cold. Okay? So I don't blanket Shadowfax in the winter. Would I if he was sick? Yes. Would I if he was young or old? Yes. A miniature horse that is in good health and not young or old, they don't really need a blanket. They're fine. And I wouldn't want to impede his coat growth. Okay? But Shadowfax just likes to let people know that he's enduring hardship when it first starts snowing, because he's a little drama llama, even though he's a horse. So goats, we have another drama llama who happens to be a goat named Arwen. So goats are a whole different kind of chaos. People love to say that goats are super cold hardy, and that's partly true. They can tolerate cold temperatures better than most folks realize, but they cannot handle the wind at all. They need to be able to get out of the wind. A breeze that wouldn't bother a chicken will have a goat acting like they've been wronged by nature. They do grow lovely thick coats, especially Arwen. Arwen is so freaking fluffy. Her hair is like that long right now. She looks like a fancy goat, and she's not fancy. But if the cold air cuts across the pasture, they instantly will run for shelter, and then they'll give you dirty looks because it's your fault. You allowed weather to exist, and therefore them being cold is your fault. Temperature-wise, they get a little extra spicy in the winter as if the wind flips their sass switch to high. But in general, goats are fine in the winter as long as they're a goat that is not meant for warm weather places. So if you have a breed of goat that's from India, for example, and they're not used to 40 below, which we get for several weeks in the winter, if you have goats that are not used to 40 below, you may have to do something to keep them warm. Whereas if you have just normal goats like your pygmies or your boar or your fainting goats, which is what Arwen is, they're okay. I promise. Let's talk chickens, because chickens are the comedians of winter. They're actually far more cold tolerant than most people realize. Their fluff is incredible insulation, and they naturally puff themselves up into little feathery marshmallows when temperatures drop. But they also have their quirks. Some hens refuse to touch snow and will stand at the coop door yelling at me to fix the snow, like I can fix it anytime before April. Roosters usually are brave explorers, and right now I've got a couple of chickens out here in front of the garage, like up front, and there's nothing wrong with that. They are fine. Some of them will decide that the frozen ground is just beneath them and they're not going to do it. The combs and the wattles do need a little special attention in the deep cold, but overall, chickens handle winter with attitude, not fragility. Even my silkies. My silkies are incredibly cold hardy. What do they need? There goes a chicken across the front yard. What do they need in order to survive the winter? They need to be able to get out of the wind. They need to be able to stay dry. And they need to be able to roost together. So a nice bar where they can sit on their feet, or if they, like my silkies won't roost, they just won't. They can go on the ground and they can puddle together and they can keep each other warm. We have them in with the horse and goat. Yes, the chicken is leaving. I don't know where he's going. Just cross front. But we have them in with the horse and goat in the winter so they can all keep each other warm. So they can just lay down, cuddle together. It's much safer than having them all apart, but we've not lost chickens to the cold. Ducks. Ducks adore winter in a truly baffling way. They waddle out into the snow like they've been giving front row tickets to the entertainment of the season. They splash in water that freezes instantly, they flip snow with their bills, and they act like wind is simply part of the fun. But don't let their joy fool you. Managing water in freezing temperatures is a whole situation because ducks need access to it and they love to make a mess with it. Still, when it comes to sheer enthusiasm, ducks in winter win every year. They thrive in cold far better than the heat, and you can see it every excited waddle as they make their way around the barnyard. Our ducks are out in the snow right now, just goofing around. The turkeys, well, they're the quiet winter champions. They're big, they're insulated, and they take cold weather in stride. Your turkeys are probably fine, okay? They're not as silly about it as ducks. They're not as dramatic as goats or shadowfacts. And they simply accept that winter exists and then they get on with their lives. What they do love, though, is being up high. So first big snowfall usually means I'll find them perched up somewhere they definitely shouldn't be, surveying their kingdom like they're deciding whether the snow is a threat or a decoration. What can you do? Now, rabbits surprise a lot of people. They actually handle cold extremely well as long as they're protected from drafts and they don't get wet. So they need a doghouse or something to get in out of the wind. Their fur is designed for insulation, and many rabbit breeds thrive better in winter than in summer, including our Rexes. What they don't like is dampness or wind. Like I said, they have to have shelter, okay? You've got to get shelter and you've got to keep them out of that wind. Give them a nice dry space with good bedding and they'll snuggle down like little toast loaves. Some even become playful in the cold, zooming around in the winter like it's given them a fresh personality. Every rabbit here has their own winter quirks, but overall, they're one of the best cold weather species on the farm. I don't have to worry about the rabbits at all, okay? So quail, now being tiny birds with giant opinions, I think they take winter as a personal challenge. They're surprisingly hardy, but they do have a strong demand. No drafts. Your quail house must be free of drafts. It has to have good ventilation, but drafts will kill your quail. They can tolerate really cold temperatures, like ours are fine in 40 below, but they need to be able to get out of the wind, okay? Even a sliver of wind sends them into the full absolutely not mode. Once they're in a sheltered space with good bedding, they're content, even when it's 40 below. They fluff up into round little pom-poms, and they settle down like they're waiting for room service. And they are. They're waiting for you to bring them their snacks. They love snacks. What about the barn cats? Well, they have two winter moods, offended or snuggly. It depends. They hate wet snow, they hate wind, and they really hate when their paws sink into fluffy snowdrifts. But give them a warm place to curl up, especially anywhere elevated, like up on top of your haystack or anything like that. And they'll happily spend hours judging the rest of us for choosing to work outdoors when we could be in the warm, snuggly house. They're hardy creatures, but they also fully embrace the concept of letting us humans handle the worst of the weather while they supervise from a place of comfort. So expect that they will do their own thing and they'll choose their own spots to get warm. You could provide them with a perfect heated, insulated cat house, and they will decide that it is much more fun to curl up in the rafters of your garage. They're cats, and sometimes you just got to roll with it. Okay? And finally, the livestock guardian dogs, and all farm dogs, really. These guys were made for winter. The cold energizes them. They patrol longer, they play harder, they sleep curled up in the snow like it's a cooling pillow. Their thick double coats protect them incredibly well, and they often look happiest when the rest of the farm is just shivering because it's 40 below. They love it. That said, they do need more calories in the winter if they're outside because they need the uptake, increased calories just to keep their energy up and to not lose a bunch of weight. And regular checks on their paw pads, okay? You want to check their feet. Snow and ice can take a toll, but overall, winter is when they truly come into their element. Keeping everyone comfortable through a Canadian winter is part routine, part problem solving, and part what fresh nonsense is the weather doing today? Tomorrow, we're supposed to have an actual blizzard. It's fun. Don't worry about it. So every species has its own needs. So winter care becomes this rotating dance of checking shelters and hauling feed and breaking ice and adjusting things on the fly. The first thing I always focus on is shelter. Not heat, but protection from the wind and moisture. Especially with chickens. Something in my teeth. But especially with chickens, wind is your enemy, but moisture is worse. Okay? If you get moisture trapped in your coop, your birds are going to get frostbite. I don't have a frostbite problem because we don't trap moisture in our coop. We have vents to let the moisture out. If you trap moisture inside your coop, you are going to end up with a heck of a lot of frostbite. We don't get frostbite even in 40 below because we control the moisture levels. So do whatever you have to do to drop the moisture in your coops because that is the problem. Okay. So we also have the wind. We're in central Canada. The wind, we're right on the prairies. The wind, and we're not too far from a lake. The wind rushes in off the lake like crazy. It's absolute insanity. So it is important to know that the wind is going to be your enemy. Okay. Once you block the drafts and keep bedding dry, most animals do far better than people expect in the winter. Now, bedding becomes a whole strategy in itself. The goats and the rabbits, and especially your smaller birds, they need dry, deep bedding that they can nestle down into. Even the chickens really love that shavings to keep their toes warm. Even if they like to roost, they'll go into the shavings and warm up their little tootsies. I'm constantly adding more bedding as the weeks go on because everyone kicks it around like they're sculpting mother art installations that I did not ask for, but it's worth it. Good bedding does more to keep animals comfortable than any heat source ever could. And in winter, dry is life. Now, water, of course, is the ongoing winter boss battle. Buckets freeze. Heated waterers fail because 40 below. I have yet to find a great solution for water that frankly doesn't freeze in 40 below. Even your best heaters stop working. So, yeah. Water. Cords get cranky. So if you're using electricity at the most inopportune moment, your cord will die. Ducks. Well, ducks will absolutely attempt to turn any water source into a splash zone. There's Whiskey, our very old golden doodle. Yes, he's an old man. It's okay. We love old men. He's fine. But ducks will attempt to turn any water source into a water park or a splash zone, depending on their mood. So even if it's literally freezing while they're doing it, they're still going to do it. We spend a lot of time checking and rechecking water throughout the day. Rabbits and quail need their crocks topped up. Goats need their buckets de-iced. We just switch out buckets. If you just take a bucket and have it in your house and let it defrost, dump the ice outside and refill it, and just switch buckets to have double the buckets. That's what works best. But we spend a lot of time doing that. Shadowfax needs his supply, especially because he likes to pot and fling half of the water into the air for reasons known only to him. I don't know. He's nuts. Shadowfax is nuts. We just live with it. But winter water management is basically my cardio. Feeding routines shift too. Everyone burns more calories in the cold. So hay or feed or whatever you feed your guys, what you feed them depends on what animals you have. But feed becomes the center of the universe. Goats demand food earlier. Horses think hay is a personality trait. And rabbits inhale it like they're auditioning for a role as tiny vacuum cleaners. And even poultry increase their feed as temperatures drop. I like to add extra feed or let them free range. Even in the winter, they can find free ranging food. Okay. They will, for example, sorry, my nose is so itchy. But they will, for example, they will go into like the forested areas and stuff right along the ground. And they will find stuff to eat if they can free range. You still need to feed them. I'm not saying, yes, I'm coming down with the flu. I'm sorry. But I'm not saying you can simply ignore them and not feed them extra in the winter. I'm just saying you can help supplement by allowing them to free range. Now, that's not always possible, especially in the winter. Predators are looking for opportunities, but if you can, it's a nice way to help. Okay. They do need to eat food, a lot of it. It's their furnace. It's their way to keep their bodies going. It's the way they keep warm. The more you feed them, to a point, you don't want chubby guys, but the more you feed them, the warmer they will be. Shelter checks. We do shelter checks constantly, walking around, making sure no drafts have snuck in, no panels have come loose in the wind, and no mischievous animal created a new feature where a wall used to be. Goats are especially talented in this department. Dogs also help with this. They patrol constantly and are usually the first to alert me to something that needs fixing. So again, another reason dogs are important. They take their winter jobs seriously, even if part of those jobs include rolling in powdery snow like big furry children. They love the snow. Trust me, the dogs love the snow. In the winter, something else that becomes important that we don't always think about is enrichment. Animals can get bored when the world turns white and cold. So give them things to do. Give them something new. Throw a bale of hay in for the chickens to scratch around with. Grab a jolly ball for your horse. Throw a bunch of snacks in the air for the goats to forage for. Do something to keep your animals entertained in the winter. It's really boring being trapped by 2 feet of snow and just kind of having to stand there and wait for spring. So try to give your animals something to do in the winter. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm not saying you have to build your chickens a playground. Throw them a bale of hay. They'll scratch through it and they'll have a great time. But don't just have them standing there in their run or their pen with nothing to do because it's so boring. Give them something. Okay? So you can give your goats things to climb. You can give poultry piles of hay or straw to scratch through. The dogs like to take longer patrols and play. They generally are a non-issue for that. Shadowfax likes snacks, attention, and his jolly ball. A bored animal in winter is a recipe for trouble. So keeping them mentally engaged goes a long way toward preventing mischief. And finally, there's the human side of it. Doing farm chores in the dark, bundled up so much that you can barely bend your knees, and trying not to lose your gloves every 5 minutes. I've already lost 2 pair. I don't know where they are. I lost gloves last year multiple times. I don't know. But when you're doing all of that while not navigating snow drifts and carrying buckets is a little much. Winter farming is slower, heavier, and a lot more intentional. It becomes a lot less, oh, let's just go outside and do whatever. And just, if we see something, we'll deal with it. And becomes we're going outside to do this, 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 and this. Okay? Because it's freezing. But there's also a quiet rhythm to the winter. There's something peaceful about hearing the soft munching of animals at night while snow falls outside, or feeling your breath on the air in the morning as the barn wakes up. Winter may be harsh, especially here where we get 40 below, but it also creates moments you don't get at any other time of the year. And there's a peace to it. Winter on a hobby farm is full of routines and practical systems, but it's also full of absolute nonsense. Every year without fail, something happens that makes me stand in the snow questioning my life choices. One of the biggest recurring problems is the wind, not the cold, the wind. The cold sucks, I'm not going to lie. But 40 below on a calm day and 40 below on a windy day are two different beasts. Okay? The wind here in central Canada will take something perfectly secure yesterday and transform it into overnight into a guess what? You have to rebuild that now. Our winter winds are wicked. So, especially if you live in an unsheltered area, the winds can absolutely decimate things. I've chased lids and tarps and buckets and scoops, and one memorable time, a chicken feeder that went skittering across the yard like it was trying to escape tax season. The goats watched, of course, offering no assistance, a lot of judgment, and a lot of noise. Speaking of goats, they are absolutely the winter chaos agents of chaos. That's what they do. One year, I had carefully stacked bales of hay in a nice sheltered corner to keep them dry. The next morning, I walk out, and the goats are all over the haystack. Half of it was on the ground, and they had burrowed into like the center of it. It's like, we're going to make a home in the middle. Seriously? This is what we're doing now. They're like a herd of smug little marmots or something. I don't know. They looked extremely pleased with themselves. They were happy about it. Like they had created a boutique chalet experience, and I should be thanking them for the architectural innovation. Winter hay storage now has to be designed around keeping the goats out of it because I don't need their nonsense right now. Okay? So you have to goat proof that, which is a concept that barely exists anyway on the best of days, and it's even harder in the winter because goats are tenacious. The chickens and the turkey and the ducks and the poultry bring their own brand of winter ridiculousness. Every year, when we get our first real snowfall, at least one chicken will step outside, touch snow, and immediately act like it was my fault and I immediately personally betrayed her. She'll freeze in place, scream about it, and then back herself up like the ground is lava. Meanwhile, the ducks are waddling out going, yes, the good stuff. We love the snow, and they do. They think the snow is fantastic. And they start immediately smashing their faces into the snow, scooping it up, spraying it everywhere, getting it in my boots. Because for some reason, dumping snow in my boots is like a pastime here on the farm, and it's annoying. You've got chickens yelling and ducks partying and Shadowfax running through the snow like it's the first time he's ever seen it. It's a whole winter mood board. Okay, it's fun. It's also chaos incarnate. Then there are the water disasters. If you have never had a bucket freeze around a water heater cord in such a way that the entire setup becomes a single fused iceberg, you have not truly lived the winter farm experience. Especially if the cord freezes in such a way that there is no way to remove the ice from the bucket without either destroying the cord or having to wait for it to thaw. It's fun. I once spent 30 minutes wrestling a bucket shaped like an iceberg while the ducks quacked behind me as if heckling a performer they didn't pay to see. And while that's happening, Shadowfax usually stands nearby, pawing dramatically at his own water like he's reenacting a tragic scene from a play titled My Winter of Suffering, because that's what he does. He's a little dramatic. The livestock guardian dogs, meanwhile, like to add their own comic relief. They love winter so much that they will fling themselves into snowbanks with complete abandon. One year, one of the dogs leaped into a drift so deep that only the tip of his tail was visible. He literally just disappeared. I was vodka. He just disappeared. He popped up 10 seconds later, covered in snow, and absolutely thrilled with himself. Okay, he was thrilled. But I aged approximately 5 years in those 10 seconds. I wasn't sure what was under the snow. I was like, oh no, did he jump into something bad? Because sometimes, you've got rolls of wire that got snowed on. You're like, is that where I put the wire? No, it was fine. Try to pick up your wire before the winter sets in. It's a little late for that now, but try. Now, the dogs also enjoy bringing me gifts, which in winter is usually chunks of ice. They find chunks of ice that I've dumped out of buckets and bring me those chunks and act like the chunks of ice are a wonderful gift I should cherish. Sometimes it's random things that they've excavated from under the snow, like sticks or rocks or whatever they find. Like, they're like archaeologists in the winter. They're weird. And finally, I'm going to talk about the time everything goes wrong at once, which is every winter storm. It's always the same pattern. The wind picks up, the temperature drops. Suddenly something breaks, blows over, something freezes, and an animal decides that today is the day they're going to test my patience and injure themselves. I've had goats escape into the snow and instantly regret their life choices, chickens roosting somewhere impossible to reach, and once a turkey who somehow got herself wedged between a bale and a wall without any logical explanation. I don't know. We had to rescue her. The problem with winter is that once one thing goes wrong, it's like the rest of the farm goes, oh, we're doing this today. Fabulous. But honestly, that's also what makes winter memories. These ridiculous moments turn into the stories I tell here, the things that make the hard days funny later on. Winter problems are annoying in the moment, sure, but they're also part of the charm of hobby farming. You learn to laugh, you learn to adapt, and sometimes you learn to sprint across the yard in deep snow chasing something that should not, under any circumstances, be moving. Usually it's a feeder. It's chaos, but it's our chaos. A lot of people picture winter farming as this peaceful, postcard perfect scene. The snow gently falling and the animals tucked into cozy barns and me strolling around with a warm mug in hand and acting like it's a winter movie. And yeah, there are moments that are absolutely straight out of a Hallmark movie. I'm not going to deny. It's true. The quiet after a storm, the soft glow of the barn lights at dawn, the sounds of animals munching hay while snowflakes drift past the windows. Those moments are real, but they're not the whole story. Not even close. Because the fantasy of winter farming usually forgets the part where the wind hits 40 kilometers an hour and instantly steals your breath the second you step outside. Or the part where I'm bundled in so many layers that I walk like a penguin and still somehow manage to get snow down the back of my coat. People imagine serene morning chores, but what they don't imagine is me wrestling with a frozen latch that absolutely refuses to cooperate while a goat inside is yelling because I'm taking too long. And I gotta defrost the latch. It's a bucket of laughs. Folks often think that winter feeding involves gently placing hay into a manger while animals gather politely around. The reality is more like I bring out the hay and goats launch themselves into it like it's a Black Friday sale. Shadowfax tries to help, and someone inevitably knocks something over. It's like an athletic event that I didn't ask for, okay? Even the poultry get involved. You've got the ducks arguing and the chickens weaving around my boots, everyone talking at once like I'm running a chaotic lunchtime cafeteria. Now, people also imagine clean, fluffy white snow everywhere. What they don't picture is that very specific farm phenomenon known as the path. The path is that one route you can walk in winter, where the snow is packed down enough that you don't fall into a hidden drift up to your knees. Step off the path even a little bit, and you're suddenly doing an interpretive dance, bouncing buckets while trying not to faceplant. If you've ever seen a grown adult trying to look dignified while slowly sinking into a snowbank, well, you've witnessed winter farming reality. And then there are the assumptions about animals. Many folks think cold weather turns the whole farm sleepy and tranquil. Meanwhile, the livestock guardians are sprinting laps like they've been plugged into a power outlet, and the ducks are acting like snow is a theme park attraction, and goats are plotting something because they're always plotting something. Winter does not slow the farm down. It shifts the chaos into a colder, puffier format, but it doesn't stop it, okay? There is no stopping the chaos. And yes, I'm getting a cold. But here's the truth. Both versions of that farm exist. The quiet, tranquil day and the chaotic somebody screaming about something. There is something magical about winter farming. There are evenings where the entire world feels still and peaceful, and mornings when the sunrise makes the snow glow like crystals. There are also mornings when I'm trying to free a frozen gate with my bare hands while whispering deeply unmagical things under my breath. Things that we do not say in a live stream where we don't want to be anything less than family friendly. Winter farming is beautiful, ridiculous, exhausting, and wonderful, all in the same hour. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Winter really is a season that teaches you things that you don't learn any other time of the year. It slows everything down just enough that you start noticing details you might overlook in summer. The way the animals settle into their routines, the rhythm of the farm shifting with the shorter days, and those quiet, small moments that remind you why you chose this life in the first place. Winter is challenging, yeah, but it's also grounding. It gives you the space to observe, adapt, and appreciate the living world around you in a different way. For me, winter has always been a season where I reconnect with the heart of my farm. The animals, the routine, the purpose behind the work. Even when that work is being done in snow up to my knees, still gets done. Now, we are going to transition into our Q&A section. I have all your questions for the people who watch later, which is almost everyone. I have your questions here. I promise I'm going to go through them. If I missed your question or somehow didn't answer it, remind me. Okay? But I do have a whole bunch of questions. The first one, when everyone realized I was doing winter, I got a lot of winter questions. So when they realized I was going to talk about winter, the winter questions rolled in. So, how do farm animals keep warm without using heat? Most farm animals don't need heat. They need dry bedding, draft-free shelter, and proper nutrition. Their bodies are designed to handle cold far better than people expect. Do you ever worry about your animals at night when it's really cold? I worry more in the shoulder seasons, so like the late fall and the early spring. In deep winter, once shelters are secure and everyone is bedded down, they're usually most comfortable. It's that late fall where things are getting cold, but they're also wet, or early spring where it's the same. Those are when you worry. What's the hardest winter chore on your farm? Water, frozen buckets and frozen hoses and frozen everything. Water management is a winter boss fight every step of the way, like every step. It's nonsense. Get ready to deal with water. What animal struggles the most with winter? Probably goats. They don't like the wind. Everyone else can handle most of it. Goats need to be able to get out of the wind all the time. Okay? A breeze is their mortal enemy. That's why Arwen's always in the barn, because the wind is pretty bad right now. What animal handles winter the best? Livestock guardian dogs, but if you mean like actual farm animals, rabbits. They do really well. Okay? Winter is their Olympics and their gold medal athletes. Does Shadowfax like the snow? Yes, but he complains about it when it first falls. Once he settles into winter, he loves it. He loves to run through it and have it kind of fly up around his legs. He absolutely loves winter snow, but he has to kind of get over being annoyed that winter arrived first. Do your chickens still lay eggs in the winter? Yeah, less. Daylight hours control laying more than temperature, and we get very little daylight this time of year. Okay? I'm live streaming mid-afternoon, and it's already starting to sort of get dark. We get dark by 3, so it'll be dark shortly. Does feeding change in winter? Yeah. Everyone needs more food than they needed 3 months ago. Okay? So extra calories somehow. Maybe that means offering more hay. Maybe that means increasing their feed. Maybe that means allowing them to free range so they can acquire extra nutrition, but they do need something extra. How do ducks handle freezing temperatures? They love it. They are pure winter joy in feathered form. Ducks love winter. How often do you check water in deep cold? At least 4 times a day. At least. You go out. Every time we go out, every time someone goes out to the barnyard, you just take water with you because you're going to need it. Do you put jackets or sweaters on your animals? No. Most animals regulate their heat naturally, and clothing can cause more harm than good if it gets wet. The exception would be like baby goats. I would put like sweaters on babies. If I had babies this time of year, I don't, but if I did, I would. And like animals that are really old or really young might need, or sick, might need some kind of blanketing. Otherwise, no. What's the funniest winter thing a goat has ever done? Climb a hay bale stack and collapse half of it on themselves to make themselves kind of a luxury goat cave. It was pretty funny, annoying, but funny. What's the most frustrating winter fail you deal with? Anything involving frozen gates or latches. It's really annoying to be going out to the barnyard and the latch is frozen shut. It can ruin your whole mood. Do the barn cats like winter? You know what? They move between thinking winter is a personal attack and they hate it, and thinking it's great because they're playing in the snow. Cats are capricious. How do rabbits stay warm? Deep bedding and draft protection. Their fur does the rest. Do you ever worry about frostbite? I always worry about frostbite. It's generally not an issue for us. We keep the humidity low in our coop, but the reason I keep the humidity so low is because I'm worried about frostbite. So being worried about frostbite helps me prevent frostbite. And you prevent frostbite not by keeping it warm in your coop, but by keeping it dry. Okay, you want the moisture out of the air, because if the moisture in the air is causing a problem, they're going to get frostbite. How do rabbits stay warm? Deep bedding and draft protection. Their fur does the rest. They just keep them out of the wind, keep them dry. Do you ever... I already do that one. What's your favorite winter farm moment? I like the quiet evening chores when everything's quiet and calm and the animals are settling down and I'm just doing night checks. Everything's very quiet. You can hear the snow falling. It's lovely. What's your least favorite winter chore? Everything involving water. Everything involving water. You have to defrost buckets or break the ice out of them or break it out of troughs. It never ends. Everything involving water. Do you have to change your routine because of winter? Yes, everything takes a little bit longer. Everything is slower and heavier. So there's more clothing, more steps, more checks. It's one of the reasons why we actually do less in the winter, but it takes just as much time. I leave all the special projects to summer when things are easier naturally. What's one winter myth that people believe about farm animals? That they all need heat lamps. You get into those Facebook groups of hobby farming or chicken groups especially, and people are like, oh, put your heat lamps up. Most animals don't need heat lamps and can actually be really dangerous. Every year someone's coop or barn burns down, and I'd rather not take the risk. And we don't use heat at all in our animal accommodations outside. If you do need it because you have someone elderly or young or whatever, I'd look into a safer option than heat lamps. Do animals get bored in winter? Yeah. That's why having something for them to do, some kind of enrichment, really, really matters. Okay? You want climbing things or treats or straw piles or something, toys, something to do. Does snow ever cause escape attempts? Yeah. We've had rabbits escape because we had so much snow that the snow came to the top of their pens and they just went over. Goats will do that too. Generally, Shadowfax is too heavy to use a snowbank to escape, but yeah, snow does create ramps for ambitious animals. Do turkeys handle winter well? Yeah, pretty well. They're big, insulated, and calm. They're also not stupid, so they're pretty good at finding shelter. Provide them with shelter, but they're pretty good at finding their own shelter if they have to. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found frozen on the farm? The water cord encased inside a bucket and frozen solid inside it. That was weird. I don't know why the cord was in there. It should have been plugged in, and it wasn't. Don't ask. Do the dogs help with winter chores? Help might be a really strong word. They supervise with enthusiasm. Do you ever take days off from winter chores? No, you can't, unless you hired someone to do it for you. Animals eat every day, even on holidays. You just have to. Okay, what was the next question? What is the most important winter safety step? Checking shelters for drafts or loose panels after wind events. Okay, you want to make sure the wind didn't suddenly rip a hole in the side of your barn. One of the most important things you can do in winter is check. Do you change bedding more often in the winter? I change bedding if it's wet. Okay. And does it happen more often in the winter? Yeah, sometimes. So for me, it doesn't matter how long it's been since I changed bedding. If it's wet, especially in the winter, it needs to be changed. Do goats ever slip on ice? Yep. And their indication is unparalleled. They're absolutely ridiculous. They act like it was my fault that they slipped on the ice, but it's not my fault that they decided to go traipsing across the ice. Goats fall down a lot on ice. Their hooves are not meant for ice, really. So, yeah, goats fall down a lot. Do you have a favorite piece of winter gear? Heated gloves. If you are going to hobby farm in the winter, get yourself some heated gloves or heated mitts or something. I lose them constantly, but I cherish them deeply. I have several pair. I only know where one pair is right now. The other ones are out there somewhere. Out there. Out there. Out there. I don't know. Out there. Yeah. How do quail do in winter? Really well. If quail can stay out of the wind and you provide them with plenty of food and plenty of water, quail do really, really well in the winter. They are hardy as heck. They are happy to be outside. They don't need to come in. So don't think you have to bring your quail inside. They're fine. I know they're little, but they're really, really hardy. Do you use heated waterers? No. Tried it a couple times. Tried ways of it gets to 40 below here. I have yet to find a heater that is reliable beyond those temperatures. Like when we're at minus 40, minus 42, minus 45, it no, doesn't work. I just take fresh water every time we go. What's the first sign that an animal is too cold? Hunched posture. So if they're kind of like hunched over a lot and they don't want to move, that probably means they're too cold. So check, like put your hands behind their ears. Are they warm or are they chilling? Usually if you have shelter, they can get out of the wind. That does not happen. But if they don't have enough shelter, if their shelter's not adequate, you might have animals that are shivering. Do the ducks ever regret being in the snow? Not once in the history of ducks have they ever regretted coming out and sitting in the snow. Our ducks come out in the snow all the time. They will spend the whole day just playing in the snow. It's a duck thing. What winter thing would you give up if you could? The water. Hauling water in the winter is not my favorite thing. If I could give up one winter farm chore, it's hauling water in the winter. Because, hauling water in the winter should be an Olympic sport. Do you ever close animals in during storms? Sometimes. We try not to. So ideally, I would like to not close the barn. But when it's 40 below or the winds are coming in at 60 kilometers an hour, which is 100 miles an hour, yeah, it's better to close up the shelters. Wind speeds like that get dangerous. Do farm animals get winter blues? Some get quieter and maybe a little bored. That's why giving them something to do matters, right? It's best if you can give them some kind of enrichment, even if it's just a straw bale to pull apart. Stick the whole thing in the pen and don't open it up. Just take the strings off and just let them. It'll keep them busy for a while. What do you personally struggle with most in the winter? One, not going to bed at 4 o'clock when it's dark out. Two, just staying motivated and not being sick. Like I'm the person, I have an autoimmune disorder and I have really bad immune system. So I spend most of the winter just getting sick. Like I'm sick right now. So for me, I'm sick all winter. So it's hard to stay motivated and I always want to go to bed. And not doing those things because I've got animals to look after, right? I can't just go to bed at 4. But that's the hardest part of winter. What winter chore do you secretly enjoy? I like night chores, night checks. They're quiet. They're peaceful. The barn is cozy. The world is at peace for a minute. And what's something that winter farming has taught you? It's taught me to be more patient because winter will test your patience. It's taught me the value of just chilling out for a minute. It's taught me resilience. You got to do things anyway. And it's given me the ability to laugh when everything is going sideways because if you can't change it, you might as well think it's hilarious. Anyway, I'm just noting the time. I have to go. I have, like I've said in previous live streams, I have a lot to do on Fridays. And this is the only time I can really fit in a live stream, but it's also a bad time for most people. So if you're watching it on the replay, excellent. If you catch it live, I'm glad you did. But that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. If you have questions you want me to answer in a future live stream, drop them in a comment on a video or find me on Facebook and shoot me a question. I am sure I'll include it on a future live stream. If I don't, either it's because I've already answered it in a recent live stream, like the last 1 or 2 weeks, or I legitimately just missed it. So shoot me another message. I promise I will include it. Okay. But I want to know if you've ever had your own winter farm fail or a funny moment or a frozen bucket disaster. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I'm going to pop back in to read them. It always makes these videos even more fun when I can go back and read some of the fun comments. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see if we can get a better shot of the outside. Probably not. We can try, but we're not gonna. We can try.